I stood in the middle of my living room, the one I'd decorated every Christmas for the past 20 years, staring at the envelope that had just slipped through the mail slot. It was addressed to my son, Mark, but the return label caught my eye. Some fancy cruise line with palm trees and ocean waves embossed on the corner. My hands trembled a little as I picked it up, the paper cool and slick under my fingers. I wasn't one to snoop, but something about it felt off, like a whisper in a quiet room that you can't quite ignore. When I turned it over, a confirmation slip peeked out. Christmas Caribbean Cruise, family package for 6. My heart dropped like a stone in still water. There were names listed: Mark, his wife Lisa, their 2 kids, my daughter Sarah and her husband Tom. But not mine. Not Evelyn, the woman who'd baked every turkey, strung every light, and made sure every holiday was perfect for them all these years. How could they? I set the envelope down on the coffee table, my breath coming in shallow puffs. The house smelled of the cinnamon candles I'd lit earlier, trying to chase away the chill of early December. Outside, snow was starting to dust the driveway, the kind that sticks and turns everything silent. I sank into my armchair, the one with the worn plaid fabric where I'd rocked my babies to sleep decades ago. My mind raced back, piecing together the little things I'd brushed off, the hushed phone calls, the quick changes in conversation when I entered the room. But this was a slap I hadn't seen coming. 20 years of hosting, of pouring my heart into those gatherings, and now they were sailing off without me? I felt a tear trace down my cheek, hot against the cool air. What had I done to deserve being left behind like an old ornament packed away in the attic? Let me take you back a bit so you understand how deep this cut went. My name is Evelyn, and for as long as I can remember, family has been my anchor. I grew up in a small town in Ohio where holidays meant crowded kitchens and laughter that echoed off the walls. My parents weren't wealthy, but they taught me that love shows up in the details: the perfectly folded napkins, the extra plate set just in case. When I married Robert 40 years ago, I carried that with me. He was a quiet man, a mechanic who worked long hours, but he loved the way I turned our modest home into a haven during the holidays. We'd start planning in October. I'd pull out the recipe box, yellowed cards from my grandmother, and he'd string the lights on the roof, grumbling but smiling all the while. Our kids came along, Mark first, then Sarah 2 years later. Those early Christmases were magic. I'd wake before dawn to stuff the turkey, the scent of sage and onion filling the air as the coffee percolated. Robert would build a fire in the hearth, the crackle mixing with the kids' excited whispers as they tore into stockings. As they grew, the tradition stuck. Even after they moved out, Mark to the city for his accounting job, Sarah to teach at the local school, I kept the flame alive. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, they'd come home. I'd spend days preparing, polishing the silver, baking pies until the kitchen counters groaned under their weight. The house would fill with the aroma of mulled cider simmering on the stove, the tang of cranberries popping in the pan. Robert passed 5 years ago, a sudden heart attack that left me reeling. The holidays that followed were harder, but they became my way of honoring him, of keeping us all connected. I'd set his photo on the mantel, surrounded by garlands I'd woven myself, the pine needles prickling my fingers as I worked. Mark and Lisa would arrive with the grandkids, little Emma and Jack, their cheeks rosy from the cold. Sarah and Tom would follow, arms loaded with gifts. We'd gather around the table, the china clinking softly as we passed dishes, sharing stories under the warm glow of the chandelier. I'd watch their faces, lit by candlelight, and feel a quiet contentment. This was my gift to them: stability, warmth, a place where life made sense. But lately, things had shifted, subtle as the first frost. Last year, during Christmas dinner, Lisa had mentioned how exhausting the drive was, her voice light but edged with something I couldn't place. Mark had nodded, saying maybe we could mix it up next time. I'd laughed it off, chalking it up to tiredness, and refilled their glasses with eggnog I'd spiked just right. Sarah had been quieter too, her smiles not quite reaching her eyes. Tom, ever the peacemaker, would change the subject, asking about my garden or the neighborhood news. I didn't push. I figured everyone had their stresses. Work, kids, life, it wears on you. So I kept hosting, kept inviting, kept believing that my efforts glued us together. That envelope changed everything. I sat there, the house too quiet now, the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall marking seconds like accusations. Why hadn't they told me? Was I too much? Too old-fashioned? The thought gnawed at me, a dull ache in my chest. I picked up the phone, my finger hovering over Mark's number, but I set it down again. Not yet. I needed to think, to understand. Outside, the snow fell thicker, blanketing the world in white, but inside, a storm was brewing. The next morning, I woke up with that same heavy feeling in my chest, like someone had left a stack of bricks on it overnight. The house was still dark, the curtains drawn against the gray December light. I lay there, listening to the furnace kick on, that low rumble I'd grown used to over the years. My first thought was the envelope. My second was that I hadn't slept much at all. I made myself get up, slipped into my robe, the soft blue one Robert bought me the Christmas before he passed, and padded downstairs. The coffee maker hissed as it brewed, the smell strong and familiar. I stood at the kitchen window, watching the snow settle on the bird feeder I kept filled year-round. Usually the cardinals and chickadees would be fluttering around by now, but today everything felt still, like the world was holding its breath. I knew I couldn't just sit with this. I needed to know why. So after my second cup, I picked up the phone and called Sarah. She's always been the softer one, the one who'd tell me if something was wrong. The phone rang 4 times before she answered, her voice bright but hurried. "Mom! Hey, good morning!" "Morning, honey," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "I was just thinking about Christmas plans. You all coming over like usual?" There was a pause, just a beat too long. I heard the muffled sound of kids in the background, Emma laughing at something. Actually, we've been talking about it," she said. "Mark and Lisa were thinking maybe something different this year. You know, a change of scenery." My fingers tightened around the phone. "A change of scenery?" I repeated quietly. "Yeah, like maybe a trip. The kids have never seen the ocean at Christmas. It could be fun." I swallowed. "And where were you thinking of going?" Another pause, then softer. "Mom, I didn't want you to find out this way. Mark was supposed to talk to you." So it was true, all of it. My throat felt suddenly dry. "Sarah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I got the cruise confirmation in the mail yesterday. It came to the house by mistake. Your names are all on it. Mine isn't." Silence, long enough that I could hear her breathing. "Oh, Mom," she sounded like she might cry. "I'm so sorry. We thought, it's just, Lisa said hosting is a lot for you now, with Dad gone, and the house and everything. We didn't want to burden you." Burden me? Those words landed like a hand across the face. 20 years of opening my doors, my heart, my wallet when needed, and now I was a burden? "I've never once complained," I said, surprised at how steady I sounded. "Not once." "I know, Mom, I know. We love coming to your house. It's just, Lisa booked it as a surprise for the kids, and then it kind of snowballed. We thought maybe you'd want a quiet Christmas for once. Time to yourself." Time to myself, as if that's what I'd been craving all these years. I closed my eyes. "And no one thought to ask me?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "I should have. I'm sorry." We talked a little longer, but it felt hollow. She promised Mark would call that evening. I hung up and stood there in the kitchen, the phone still warm in my hand. The snow had stopped, leaving everything clean and untouched outside. Inside, I felt anything but. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I went up to the attic and pulled down the boxes marked Christmas. Not to decorate. I wasn't ready for that, but to look through them. I sat on the cold wooden floor surrounded by decades of memories. The handmade ornaments the kids painted in grade school, the star Robert and I bought on our first married Christmas, the little ceramic nativity set my mother gave me when Mark was born. I held each one, turning them over in my hands, feeling the weight of all those years. I'd always thought these things tied us together, that as long as I kept the traditions alive, we'd stay close. Maybe I'd been holding on too tight, or maybe they'd just outgrown me. Mark called around 7, just as the streetlights flickered on outside. "Mom," he started, voice low, "Sarah told me you know about the cruise." "I do." "I'm sorry you found out that way. It wasn't supposed to happen this way." "How was it supposed to happen, Mark?" I asked. I was sitting in Robert's old recliner, the one that still smelled faintly of his aftershave when I leaned close. He sighed. We all thought, maybe it was time for something new. The kids are getting older. Jack's obsessed with ships right now. And honestly, Mom, you do so much every year. We didn't want you to feel obligated." "Obligated," I echoed. "Son, I never did it out of obligation. I did it because I wanted to, because it made me happy to have you all here." He said, "I know. We love you. That hasn't changed." But it had. Something had shifted, and we both knew it. I asked about the details, who planned it, how long they'd known. He told me Lisa found a good deal back in September, booked it in October. They'd been planning for months. Months of conversations I wasn't part of. Months of excitement I wasn't included in. Before we hung up, he said, "You could still come, Mom. There's probably space. We could call and add you." I looked around the quiet living room, the bare mantel where the stockings usually hung. I said, "No, I meant it. This one's yours. You go and make those memories with your families." He tried to protest, but I meant it. I wasn't going to invite myself where I clearly hadn't been wanted in the first place. After we said goodbye, I sat in the dark for a long time. No tears this time, just a deep, aching sadness. Not anger, not yet. Just the slow realization that the life I'd built around these holidays, around them, was changing whether I was ready or not. The days blurred after that. December marched on, the calendar flipping pages like it was in a hurry to get somewhere. I went through the motions, grocery shopping, where the aisles were crowded with harried mothers pushing carts full of wrapping paper and cookie dough. The post office, with its lines snaking out the door, the air thick with the scent of stamps and cardboard. But inside, I was numb, like I'd been wrapped in cotton wool. I didn't decorate that year. The boxes stayed in the attic, gathering dust. Instead, I cleaned, scrubbed the baseboards until my knees ached, polished the wood floors until I could see my reflection in them, a woman with graying hair and tired eyes staring back. It was my way of coping, I suppose, keeping busy so the thoughts didn't crowd in too much. But they did anyway, at night especially. I'd lie in bed, the quilt pulled up to my chin, listening to the wind rattle the windows. I'd replay the conversations in my head. Lisa's idea, Mark had said. Lisa, with her perfect highlights and her job in marketing, always talking about experiences over things. She'd been part of the family for 12 years now, ever since she and Mark met at that conference in Chicago. I'd welcomed her with open arms, taught her my pie crust recipe, babysat the kids so they could have date nights. But there'd always been a distance there, a politeness that never quite warmed into affection. And Sarah, my girl, the one who'd call me every Sunday just to chat. How had she gone along with this? Tom was a good man, steady as they come, but he followed her lead. I pictured them all huddled around Lisa's laptop, picking cabins, planning excursions, laughing about piña coladas on the deck while I sat here alone. The betrayal settled in slow, like ink bleeding through paper. It wasn't just the cruise, it was the secrecy, the assumption that I'd be fine with it, that I wouldn't mind being sidelined. I'd given so much, time, energy, love, and they'd taken it for granted, or worse, seen it as a chore to endure. A week after the envelope arrived, I got a text from Lisa. "Hey Evelyn, just checking in. Kids are so excited about the trip. Hope you're doing well. XO." I stared at it for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, let the silence speak. But that wasn't me. I typed back, "I'm sure they'll have a wonderful time. Take lots of pictures." Her reply came quick. "We will, and next year we'll do something all together. Promise." Next year, as if that erased this one. That evening, Sarah stopped by unannounced. I heard her car in the driveway, the crunch of tires on snow. She let herself in with her key, calling out, "Mom," as she stamped her boots on the mat. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup, chicken noodle, the kind I always made when someone was under the weather, even though it was just me now. She came in, cheeks flushed from the cold, unwinding her scarf. "Smells good," she said, but her smile was tentative. "Sit," I told her. "I'll get you a bowl." We ate in silence for a bit, the spoons clinking against the ceramic. Finally, she set hers down. "Mom, I feel awful about this. Really." I looked at her, my daughter with Robert's eyes and my stubborn chin. "Then why did you do it?" She fidgeted with her napkin. "It started as Lisa's idea. She showed us the brochure and the kids went crazy. Mark jumped on it, said it would be a nice break. I didn't want to be the one to say no, but I should have thought about you more." "You all should have," I said softly, "but you didn't." Her eyes welled up. "We're not trying to push you out. It's just life is busy. The drive, the packing, the whole thing. And since Dad," she trailed off. "Since Dad died, you mean," I finished for her. "You think I can't handle it anymore." "No, God no. We thought maybe you'd enjoy not having to do all the work." I pushed my bowl away. "The work was the point, Sarah. It was how I showed I cared, how I kept us together." She reached across the table, took my hand. Her fingers were cold. "I'm sorry, Mom, truly. What can I do?" I squeezed back, but inside the hurt twisted. "Just go on the trip. Enjoy it. I'll be fine." She stayed a while longer, helping me wash up, chatting about the kids' school plays and Tom's promotion. But when she left, hugging me tight at the door, the house felt emptier than before. That night, the anger finally came. Not a rage, but a quiet burn. I sat at the computer, the screen's glow harsh in the dark room. I typed in the cruise line's name, pulled up their website. There it was, the itinerary. White sand beaches, onboard Santa visits, midnight buffets, all the things I'd never had because I'd been too busy making magic here. I clicked through photos of happy families posing on deck, toasting with tropical drinks. My family would be one of them soon, without me. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit here pining. If they could plan a surprise, so could I. I called my old friend Betty from church. She'd lost her husband too, 2 years back, and we'd talked about traveling someday. "Betty," I said when she answered, her voice crackly over the line, "how do you feel about a little adventure?" She laughed. "Evelyn, what are you up to?" I told her about the cruise, the exclusion, the ache. I think it's time I made my own plans. By afternoon, we'd booked it. A cozy bed and breakfast in the mountains, just a few hours' drive. Skiing lessons, hot cocoa by the fire, a Christmas Eve service in a little chapel. Nothing extravagant, but mine. I didn't tell the kids, not yet. Let them have their secrets. I'd have one too. As the departure date neared, the calls increased. Mark checking in, Sarah sending photos of the kids' packed suitcases. Lisa even mailed a card. Thinking of you, Merry Christmas. I smiled at that, tucking it away. The hurt was still there, but now it shared space with something new. Resolve. Christmas Eve came quiet and cold. The neighborhood was lit up like always. Strings of colored bulbs along the eaves, inflatable Santas swaying in the wind, porch lights glowing warm against the snow. I stood at my front window for a long time, coffee mug in hand, watching families pile into cars with suitcases and wrapped gifts. Somewhere down the highway, my own family was doing the same, heading to the airport for their flight to Miami and the ship that would carry them away. I'd said my goodbyes the day before. Mark had called from the chaos of packing, kids shouting in the background, Lisa reminding someone about sunscreen. "We'll miss you, Mom," he'd said, and I believed he meant it in his way. Sarah texted a string of hearts and a photo of Emma in a new sun hat. I replied with a simple, "Safe travels, love you all." No drama, no guilt trips, just those words because that's all I had left to give freely. I left the house at noon. The drive to the mountains was slow, roads slick in places, radio playing soft carols I turned down low. Betty was waiting for me at the bed and breakfast, a rambling Victorian with gingerbread trim and smoke curling from the chimney. She waved from the porch, bundled in a red coat, her silver hair peeking out from a knit hat. When I stepped out of the car, she pulled me into a hug that smelled of pine and wool. "Merry Christmas, stranger," she said into my shoulder. "I'm glad you called." Inside, the place was everything the website promised, a towering tree in the parlor, strung with old-fashioned glass ornaments, a fire snapping in the grate, the scent of fresh-baked gingerbread drifting from the kitchen. The innkeeper, a cheerful woman named Ruth, showed us to our adjoining rooms, quilts in deep greens and reds, a small balcony overlooking snow-laden evergreens. It felt like stepping into one of those holiday cards I used to send out every year. We spent the afternoon walking the grounds, boots crunching on packed snow, breath fogging in the air. Betty talked about her grandkids in California, how they'd FaceTimed her that morning. I listened more than I spoke, letting the quiet seep into me. That evening, we joined the other guests for dinner, 10 of us around a long oak table, strangers who became friendly over roast goose and cranberry relish. Someone played piano in the parlor afterward, soft versions of Silent Night and O Little Town of Bethlehem. I sat by the fire with a cup of spiced cider, the warmth seeping into my hands, and for the first time in weeks, the ache in my chest eased a little. On Christmas morning, I woke early. The mountains were pink with sunrise, the sky clear and sharp. I slipped out onto the balcony in my robe and slippers, the cold air biting my cheeks. My phone buzzed on the nightstand inside, messages starting to come in. Photos from the cruise, Mark and Lisa with the kids in front of the ship, all wearing Santa hats, the ocean sparkling behind them, Emma waving from the deck rail, Jack holding a giant ice cream cone, Sarah and Tom toasting with colorful drinks at sunset. Captions full of exclamation points. Best Christmas ever. So grateful. Paradise. I looked at those pictures for a long time. They looked happy, truly happy, sun-kissed and relaxed in a way they never quite managed after the long drive to my house, the unpacking, the inevitable exhaustion of a big family gathering. I felt a pang, sharp and familiar, but it didn't cut as deep as I'd expected. Maybe because I was here, wrapped in quiet beauty of my own making. Maybe because I was starting to see that their joy didn't have to come at the expense of mine. Betty knocked softly on the connecting door. "Breakfast in 20, she called. "Then we're trying that sleigh ride." I smiled to myself and typed back a single message to the family group chat. "Merry Christmas, my loves. You all look wonderful. Enjoy every minute." Then I added a photo I'd taken from the balcony, the mountains glowing rose gold, a light dusting of snow on the pines. No caption needed. The sleigh ride was pure magic. 2 big Clydesdales pulled us along a wooded trail, bells jingling, blankets tucked around our legs. The driver pointed out deer tracks and told stories about the old logging days. Betty and I laughed like schoolgirls when the horses snorted clouds of steam. Later, we drank hot chocolate thick with marshmallows back at the inn, cheeks stinging from the wind. That night, after a candlelight service in the little stone chapel down the road, I sat alone in the parlor while the others played cards. The tree lights twinkled, reflecting in the window like tiny stars. My phone lit up again, more photos, a short video of the kids meeting Santa on the Lido deck. I watched it twice, smiling at their excitement. Then I opened my photos and scrolled through my own day. Betty and me in the sleigh, the sunrise over the ridge, the chapel glowing with candlelight. My memories, my peace. I posted a few of them on Facebook, not to show off, not to make a point, just because I wanted to share the beauty. Within minutes, comments started rolling in from old friends, neighbors, even some distant cousins. "Looks magical, Evelyn. You deserve this. So happy you're enjoying yourself." And then, from Sarah, "Mom, those pictures are gorgeous. I'm so glad you went somewhere special." Mark texted privately, "I saw your pictures. It looks amazing. I'm sorry again about how everything happened. We love you." I typed back, "I know you do, and I love you. Let's talk when you're home." No accusations, no tears, just truth, gentle and clear. The weeks after their visit settled into a gentle rhythm. Snow melted into muddy March, then gave way to the soft greens of April. I kept busy the way I always have. Garden beds turned over, early peas planted, the porch swept clean for the warmer days ahead. But something inside me had shifted. Quiet but permanent, like furniture rearranged in a room you've lived in forever. I wasn't waiting anymore, not the way I used to. Sarah started calling more often, not just on Sundays. Little check-ins. "How's the garden coming?" Or, "The kids want to know if you're making strawberry jam this year." Mark sent photos of the grandkids at t-ball practice, Jack swinging wildly at the ball, Emma cheering from the bleachers. Lisa even texted once or twice, simple things like a recipe she thought I'd like or a funny meme about mother-in-laws that made me chuckle despite myself. We didn't talk about the cruise again, not directly. It sat there between us like a scar that had healed but still pulled sometimes when the weather changed. I didn't need to keep picking at it. They knew what they'd done, and I knew I'd survived it. That was enough. In May, Sarah invited me to Emma's school play. I drove over early, picked up flowers from the roadside stand, daisies, her favorite. The auditorium smelled of floor wax and nervous children. When Emma spotted me in the audience, her face lit up like I'd handed her the moon. After the curtain call, she ran to me in her cardboard butterfly wings, hugging my neck so tight I could feel her little heart racing. On the way home, Sarah said quietly, "She kept asking if Grandma would be there. I told her of course you would." I nodded, staring out the window at the fields rolling by. Good. Summer came with its long evenings and fireflies. The kids spent weekends at my house more often, sleepovers where we made forts in the living room and ate ice cream straight from the carton. I taught Emma how to roll pie crust the way my mother taught me, flour dusting our noses. Jack helped me in the garden, proud as could be when the first tomatoes ripened red on the vine. One August afternoon, while the kids napped on the porch swing, Lisa joined me in the kitchen. She'd come to pick them up early but lingered over a glass of iced tea. "Evelyn," she started, stirring the ice with her straw, "I've been wanting to say this for a while. Last Christmas, I pushed that trip because I thought I knew what everyone needed. I didn't ask, I just decided, and I hurt you. I'm truly sorry, not just for the cruise, but for any time I've made you feel like an outsider in your own family." I looked at her, really looked. She was nervous, fingers tight around the glass, eyes steady on mine. "I appreciate that," I said. "It means something, hearing it straight." She nodded. "I'd like us to be better, closer, if you'll let us." I reached over and patted her hand. "We're getting there." Fall painted the trees gold and crimson. In October, Mark called with an idea. "Mom, we've been talking, all of us this time. What if we did Christmas here at your house this year? The whole thing, tree, turkey, stockings, the works. But we help. Everyone pitches in. No putting it all on you." I was quiet for a moment, listening to the leaves rustle outside my window. "And if I say I'd rather do something smaller or different?" "Then we do that," he said without hesitation. "Whatever you want. We just want to be together with you." I smiled into the phone. "Let's plan it together then, early." We did. Sunday dinners became planning sessions. Menus discussed, decorations debated, even a vote on whether to keep the old fruitcake recipe or try something new. The fruitcake won, barely. The kids drew name tags for the table settings. Sarah found new stockings with everyone's initials, including one for Betty, who I'd invited too. As December approached again, I pulled the boxes down from the attic myself. No heaviness this time, just the familiar creak of the ladder, the scent of pine from years past still clinging to the garlands. I decorated slowly, savoring it, the way the lights reflected in the window at dusk, the quiet joy of placing Robert's favorite angel at the top of the tree. The night before Christmas Eve, snow started falling, soft and steady. I stood at the window watching it blanket the yard, the way it had that first year I'd found out. But this time, the house didn't feel empty. It felt ready. They arrived the next day in a caravan, cars loaded with gifts, coolers of food, laughter spilling out before the doors even opened. The kids raced inside, cheeks red from the cold, shouting about the snowman they wanted to build. Mark carried in the turkey I'd only brined this year. Someone else was roasting it. Lisa brought her famous green bean casserole, Sarah the pies we'd made together the weekend before. We cooked side by side, the kitchen warm with steam and stories. Music played low, Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, the standards Robert loved. At one point, I caught Lisa humming along while chopping onions, and I smiled to myself. That night, after the kids were asleep under quilts in the guest rooms, the adults sat by the fire with mugs of cocoa. Snow tapped gently against the windows. Mark raised his glass. "To Mom, for always opening your home and your heart, and for teaching us, sometimes the hard way, how to do better." I felt my eyes sting, but in the best way. "To all of us," I said, "for choosing to show up. That's what matters." We clinked mugs, the fire crackling soft agreements. Christmas morning dawned bright and white. The kids tore into presents with squeals, paper flying everywhere. We ate breakfast late, cinnamon rolls gooey from the oven, bacon crisp, coffee strong. Later, we bundled up and built that snowman in the front yard, all of us laughing as the head kept toppling off. As the sun set, painting the snow pink and gold, I stood on the porch watching them load the cars to head home. Hugs again, longer this time, promises of visits soon. When the last taillights disappeared down the road, I went back inside. The house was quiet now, but not empty. Wrapping paper scraps still littered the floor, dishes waited in the sink, the tree lights glowed steady in the corner. I poured myself a small glass of sherry, the one I save for special nights, and sat in Robert's old chair. The warmth of the day settled over me like a blanket. I'd learned something this year. Family isn't just the traditions we cling to, it's the choice every day to include each other, to speak up, to listen, to forgive when it's hard, and to grow when it's needed. I'm not the same woman I was last December, and neither are they. But we're here, together, and that's the best gift of all. And that's my story, darlings. From the cold shock of that envelope sliding under my door to the quiet fire on Christmas night with my family gathered close, choosing each other all over again. I learned something I wish I'd understood sooner. We pour our love into traditions, into meals and decorations and perfect holidays, thinking that's how we hold people near. But people aren't held by turkey dinners or twinkling lights. They're held by honesty, by respect, by the simple courage to say, "This is what we're planning. How do you feel about it?" And sometimes they're held by letting go a little so they can come back on their own. I'm not angry anymore. How could I be? Look at what came after the hurt. Real conversations, real apologies. A Christmas where no one carried the weight alone. My grandchildren will remember both. The year Grandma wasn't on the cruise, and the year she was right in the middle of everything, laughing while we fixed the snowman's crooked carrot nose. Life changes. Children grow up. Priorities shift. New ideas come along. But family, if we tend it gently, if we speak up instead of hiding plans, family bends without breaking. So I ask you this, from my heart to yours. Have you ever felt pushed aside by the people you love most? Or maybe you've been the one making plans without thinking how they'd land. What would you do if an envelope like that came through your door? Would you sit in the hurt? Or would you choose your own light like I did in those mountains? And when they came back, would you open the door wide enough for healing? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. Your stories matter to me, just as mine matters to you. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. If this touched you even a little, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe so we can keep sharing these quiet truths together. Until next time, take care of your heart. It's the greatest home you'll ever have. Good night, my dears.